So just for those of you who I haven't met, my name is Jenna. My role at Wattle is to build long-term relationships with our existing client base, discuss strategy, make sure that they're getting the most out of their software solutions with us. I'd be really interested to know who we've got on this afternoon's webinar. Would you mind just writing a short introduction into the chat to let us know what organisation you're joining from, your role there, and then maybe just share a reason as to why you've joined us this afternoon. So maybe what are you hoping to get out of this webinar? And just while you're doing that, in terms of a little bit of housekeeping for the session, we are recording this, so we will send a link in a follow-up email to the recording of the session, and we want this to be as enjoyable and engaging for you as possible. So as we're going through and as Dave is presenting in a short while, I'll keep an eye on the chat, so please do feel free to post any questions that you've got on the way. We'll stop quite regularly to do a bit of questions and answers, so please don't be shy and get involved. Right, so before I do pass you over to Dave to get into the more juicy stuff, I'll whiz through a brief introduction to Wattle, let you know a bit more about what we do, who we are, for the benefit of those of you that maybe aren't already partnered with us. So I'm just going to share 2 PowerPoint presentation slides, so nothing too heavy, luckily. Right. Is that showing on? I just have a...
No.
No, it's not. 1 second. There we go. That should be showing now, hopefully.
Yes.
Wonderful. So who are Wattle? We are an independent creative software company. We partner strategically with memberships, with charities and with not-for-profits. And what we do is deliver end-to-end digital transformation projects. So we cover CRM implementation, we build websites and portals, and we also do all of the complex integrations that allow these systems to talk to each other. The way that we deliver this is through a unique solution that we've developed in-house, which is called MemEx, which stands for our Membership Experience Platform. We work predominantly with membership, charity and not-for-profit organisations, and our aim within this sector is to form long-term strategic partnerships with our clients. So this means we're interested in having a more strategic relationship that's built on trust and those long-term goals. I think a few of these clients up on the screen here are joining on today's webinar, along with people from organisations that I haven't yet met. So I do look forward to connecting with you after today. But anyway, I think for now, that's probably enough about Wattle. So what I'm going to do is hand it over to Dave at this stage, who will talk you through, why you're here, which is why you should create a more engaging member experience through building habit-forming software, and what this actually looks like in the context of membership organisations. So Dave, over to you, thanks.
Thank you. I just got to see if I can get my camera running. There we go. Everyone can see me. So hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. For those that don't know me, my name is Dave Abraham. I've been working with digital technologies for about 20 years and membership organisations for around about 10 years. I'm the CEO and founder of Wattle and spend most of my days working with membership organisations on their digital strategy and developing products and solutions for our sector. First of all, thank you everyone for joining me today. I know it's incredibly hot out there, and it wouldn't be right if I didn't mention the weather. And apologies for the gym t-shirt. It's that hot that I'm wearing gym gear, sat in a very air-conditioned space at the back of my house. So during the presentation, we've got a couple of slides where interactivity is encouraged. So if I ask any questions, please do feel free to use the chat feature to reply to us and get involved. If you've got any questions, again, do use the chat feature. Don't feel free, don't hold them back if you want to throw questions as and when we're talking in presenting. Let's keep it interactive, and I'm happy to take questions as we go along as I reach the end of the slides. Good stuff. Okay, so Today, we're going to be talking about creating habit-forming software. Membership associations have two forms of software. You've got both the internal and the external systems. Internally, we leverage what would be traditionally called CRM databases or maybe membership management systems. Quite recently, the term association management software has been gaining quite a lot of traction. Externally, we've had the platforms that our members engage with us on. So that's our portals and our websites. And we would refer to those as our digital platforms. And they're a key point of member engagement with our organizations. Today's topics are going to be focused on those digital platforms, the point of member engagement with our organization. We're going to be starting the session by taking a look at some research conducted in 2008 by an entrepreneur named Nir Eyal, who formulated a concept called the hooked model. We're going to look into the hook model a little deeper, exploring some of the key concepts of triggers, actions, rewards, and investment. We're then going to look at some examples of how the model works in the real world before taking a look at how we can use some of those concepts in our organizations to create habit-forming platforms that members want to engage with us on. And then finally, we're going to be taking a sneaky peek at some of the latest developments within our platform, MemEx, and showcase some of the features that support that hooked model. In 2008, Nir Eyal was part of a team of Stanford MBAs starting a company backed by some of the brightest investors in Silicon Valley. They wanted to build a platform to place ads into online social games. Eyal wondered how mind manipulation worked, how products change our actions and create compulsions. How can you engineer user behavior? Are there any moral implications? Could those forces be used for good? So he looked around for a guide and he couldn't really find anything that satisfied him. So he documented his experiences, readings and observations of hundreds of companies to uncover patterns in user experience design and functionality. He wanted to know what was common between the winners and determine what was missing from the losers. And that research was ultimately turned into a best-selling book called Hooked: How to Build Habit-Forming Products. I definitely encourage you to grab a copy of this book. It makes for some interesting reading. Today, we're going to take a look at some of the core concepts of building habit-forming software that he explored in that book. The premise of his research was that it was possible to form a cycle of habit-forming behavior that lowers the cost of customer acquisition and ultimately increases customer retention. He argued that we can distill this down into a simple formula, and as a simplification of how we can create engaging user experiences, it's actually a really compelling concept. The formula is actually based around triggers, actions, rewards, and investment. Any marketeers here today will recognize some of this pattern. How many times have we heard about needing a call to action as we create a digital asset and throw a lead gen form at our users? They're not wrong. We do need a trigger and an action for the user to take, but there has to be some form of reward and a method of creating investment in your platform. The formula can be seen in action on some of the most successful digital platforms, the most obvious being social media, where users engage in enormous numbers, being prompted by triggers that make them take action and then reward them. The time and data that they supply becomes the investment, and we've created what could be dubbed the drug of our lifetime. It's an addictive platform where content is driven by users and they actually want to use it. What I find interesting about this formula is that it combines multiple disciplines that have become separated over time. Marketing people often leverage triggers and actions, while UI and UX designers define the rewards, and often engineers create feature sets that create ongoing investment. In our world, we often see organizations struggling to align all of those disciplines to create a truly successful implementation of this pattern. The benefits of creating habit-forming software include increased customer lifetime value, more flexibility in raising prices or charging for premium services, growth by word of mouth publicity, a greater competitive edge because the competition finds it much more difficult to make inroads. But people are creatures of habits, and creating new ones often requires them to forget certain old ones. That means for new types of behavior to become really ingrained into our decision-making systems, they need to be reinforced again and again. The benefit is that once you've succeeded in turning your product into a habit-forming competing product, we'll find it tougher to displace your product. So, for example, Google's ubiquity with internet searches meant that products that are not particularly bad, like Bing is an example, have failed to become popular. There's no reason why from a technical perspective Google is better than Bing. There might be slight differences between the two, but ultimately it's the habits formed around the usage of the platform that made it almost impossible for competing platforms to gain those inroads. So let's explore this formula in a little bit more detail and see some examples. Habits need a foundation and layer upon layer of continued behavior change to be completely formed. And triggers are the cue at the foundation for this behavioral change. Triggers come in two types, external and internal. Habit forming products start by alerting users with external triggers like an email, a website, a app icon, or a phone. We're used to triggers in the marketing world because, as I mentioned earlier, we often refer to them as calls to action. We want to trigger a user to perform an action, and often in digital marketing, that's one that purely benefits us. So we place a call to action. We might even create an email marketing campaign and drop in a trigger to click through into our website and declare victory when we record a hit in our analytical platforms. Social networks do this much better. The triggers are actually user generated and highly tailored to our desires because of the social connections that we make with both people and interests. Most of the data is supplied and generated by us. We create our own triggers that they use to hook us into using the platforms. It's pretty clever stuff. Some examples of external triggers might be paid triggers, channels like advertising that capture attention but are expensive to use in the long run. Earned triggers like continued media presence, viral videos, press mentions, which can also be difficult to sustain for any organization or product. Relationship triggers, they come from engaged users who enthusiastically share information with other potential users. And own triggers, and those are arguably the most useful. They employ permissions from users to send triggers like app updates and periodic notifications into their personal space. For a product to become a habit, its triggers needs to move from the external forms to the internal. Internal triggers are driven by users' emotions and associations stored in their memory. Trying to rid oneself of negative emotions like boredom and loneliness are powerful triggers for using a particular product. As a product relieves those negative emotions repeatedly, our mind subconsciously begins to associate it with that relief. This gradually strengthens the bond with a product, resulting in the formation of a habit. For example, our reliance on Facebook or Twitter for our instant social connections or the relieving of boredom. Designing a habit-forming product requires an understanding of the emotions that are tied to those internal triggers, as well as a knowledge of how external triggers can effectively urge a user to perform certain actions. Following the trigger comes the action. That's the behavior done in anticipation of a reward. Some companies combine the action and the trigger, asking people to take action within an email directly. The behavior model developed by a gentleman called Dr. B.J. Fogg of Stanford University says that the user's behavior or action depends on three prerequisites: sufficient motivation and an ability to perform a certain action, and a trigger to prompt the action. Therefore, for a trigger to be effective, the user should be motivated enough and should be able to perform the action with minimal effort. Even when there's a successful trigger and a compelling enough motivation, a person needs to be able to perform an action. The easier it is to perform, the greater the likelihood of it is becoming a habit. Simple chart there on the right hand side showing that. Just asking someone to do something often isn't enough. It's a start for sure, but there's got to be sufficient motivation for that user to actually take action. Generally, people are motivated to take action for 3 reasons: for pleasure or avoidance of pain, the desire and hope or avoidance of fear, the desire for social acceptance or the avoidance of rejection. There's been variances of these motivations, and you can simplify it down into pleasure, pain, and fear. But ultimately, it's a universal truth that there's only so many motivators that we have to take action as humans. These emotions have been tapped into in the advertising space since, well, the start of advertising, so much so that it's now pretty heavily regulated to ensure that we're being truthful with our claims about how products might make a consumer feel, for example. Variable rewards are one of the most powerful tools that companies implement to hook users. Research shows that the levels of the neurotransmitter dopamine surges when the brain's expecting a reward. If you introduce variability, it multiplies that effect, creating a focused state, which suppresses the area of the brain associated with judgment and reason, while activating the parts associated with wanting and desire. The unsurprising response of, say, your fridge light turning on when you open the door doesn't really drive you to keep opening it again and again. However, if you add variability to the mix, say a different flavor of cheesecake magically appears in your fridge every single time you open it, then intrigue is created, especially if you're my wife. Sorry, that wasn't in the script, by the way. So when we click the app icon to open Facebook, we're presented with a newsfeed that's tailored to our interests, even down to the advertising. The variability of the reward that we get for opening the app is what makes so many people clock up so much time on those platforms. Again, think back to some of those emotions that we were speaking about, boredom and the reasons why people may open it, but also think about the reward that you get when you open it. You get the cure for your boredom. The reward is the variability and the highly tailored content, which is why you open it so many times. There are 3 types of variable rewards. Those that satisfy our social needs by making us feel more important and accepted, for example, likes, shares, and comments on Facebook. Those that satisfy our basic survival instincts by helping us to acquire things that we consider important, like cash or information. Like the mundane mixture of content on Twitter entices users to keep looking for more, for those golden nuggets. Those that help us in self-determination by providing a sense of accomplishment, like apps called Mailbox that segment emails into neat little folders, helping to achieve a state of what they call inbox zero, which gives a sense of accomplishment in mastery. And I really like that last example as a little known application as an inbox organizer, but it doesn't even change the number of emails you get. It's purely about making you feel better about what you're doing. It's tapping into the emotion of organization. I feel more organized because I use this product. Finally, we've got the investment. The investment occurs when the user puts something into the product or service, such as time, data, effort, social capital, or money. The investment's often an action that improves the service for the next visit. So inviting friends, stating preferences, building virtual assets are all investments that users make to improve their own experience. These commitments can be leveraged to make the trigger more engaging, the action easier, the reward more exciting with every single pass through that hook cycle. It creates a sense of investment in our products. Once a user is invested, everything else becomes easier. Users trigger their own actions for other users, creating habit-forming rituals themselves between themselves. Once we hit that point, the potential for growth is actually enormous. This is all fine and well when we're talking about digital product design, websites and social networks. We can understand how and why, say, Instagram is addictive. It's completely logical that a user will open an app, see pictures that have been refined for that specific user with an intelligent AI, and we can understand that he would have incentives to click like and comment, and the investment in the platform of both of those social interactions with his own profile. It's literally how the digital age has been propelled, but does this actually work in a business setting? LinkedIn proves that it does. It's easy to write LinkedIn off as a social network, but it's more than that, isn't it? It's got the very basic components of social networking, like updates, likes, and comments, and they've certainly becoming more content driven over the past few years. But it's got a very specific business focus. There's an etiquette when you're using it, from your profile pictures to the language that you use. We perceive it to be a professional tool, not necessarily a fun tool, yet it's widely used and it's definitely habit forming. LinkedIn's got 830 million members with 58 million registered companies, and of those members frequently engaging with the platform, 40% are accessing it on a daily basis. But here's the interesting thing. LinkedIn services are something for which users are actually willing to pay. Their current annual revenue stands at 8.05 billion at the moment. So what percentage of users do you all think pay for LinkedIn services? I'm just going to fire up a little poll as I'm talking, and you can everyone's looking at themselves on the screen now, aren't they? I'm going to fire up a little poll, and you can just have a little guess at what you think the percentage of users that pay for LinkedIn are. So feel free to hit on that one. The number shocked me. It was pretty high, so I'm giving you a good hint there. So while you're all clicking away on that and having a guess at what you think the number is, I will tell you what the number is. The number is a total of 39% of LinkedIn users pay for LinkedIn Premium. 39% of users pay for LinkedIn Premium. I'm going to keep saying it because even I find that quite shocking. It's a really interesting statistic. Users pay for it. A lot of users pay for it. A social networking site where people pay, in some cases, more per head than they do an association for membership. Let that just sink in for a moment. Then often paying more per head than what they do for membership within your organizations. The question is, why? It's because the platform is habit forming, and those habits have created investment in perceived value way beyond the platform's capabilities and probable worth. But here's the key point. The people watching this today will have organizations that provide value well beyond LinkedIn, yet they'll probably have a fraction of their user engagement in proportion to their user base. Organizations and individuals will deliberate over renewing membership with us, yet they won't blink an eye at paying for their subscription to LinkedIn. I would argue that an organization that's offering training, accreditation, professional validation, events, representation, legal advice, all the other benefits and services that you provide, I would argue that you've got more worth than a social network to your members. Think about it. Many of our clients define the standards for their sector. If they aren't providing the training, they're often validating and accrediting it for their partners. The very definition of a membership organization, according to Wikipedia, is as follows: a membership organization is an organization that allows people or entities to subscribe and often requires them to pay a membership fee or subscription. Nothing new here. Membership organizations typically have a particular focus, which involves connecting people together around a particular activity, geographical location, industry, activity, interest, mission, or profession. This might simply be to encourage or facilitate interaction and collaboration, but it also involves promoting and enhancing the purpose itself. We often fulfill the purpose of connecting people together via events and activities and providing them with routes to qualifications, education, training, professional validation. But this doesn't really fit the formula of a habit building experience, does it? If we think back to some of those motivations that we were talking about earlier, that's those that satisfy our social needs by making us feel more important and accepted. Those that satisfy our basic survival instincts by helping us acquire things that we consider to be important. Those that help us in self-determination by providing a sense of accomplishment. If we provide somebody with an outstanding event experience that give them a new qualification, they hop onto LinkedIn to share that experience and they gain social validation to obtain that sense of accomplishment from their network. But why are we accepting that? There's been a huge drive towards measuring engagement within our sector. I talk to organizations about engagement scoring and benchmarking in most new business pitches. It's a really common requirement. We're always asked how we benchmark engagement. But those doing it are mostly distilling it down into a formula that checks email open rates or logins or website hits. That type of thinking isn't really creating habit-forming engagement for the members. I would argue that any organization talking to you about measuring engagement without providing you meaningful insight on how to create it should probably not be giving you advice in the first place, because you can't measure what you don't have. I want to try a quick exercise. Can the people on this today just tell me what is the key benefit of membership within your organization? Just type if you want to do 1, 2, 3. If we just take a moment to sort of think about what the key benefits of membership is within our organization. If you can only come up with one, just fire it into the chat for me very quickly, and perhaps as you're firing them in, Jenna can read them out. Quite often with organizations, we see a lot of the benefits that are described by organizations will be anything from representation, technical advice, professional accreditation and validation, etc., etc. But most membership organizations will have their own unique mixture of benefits. And I think it's quite interesting when we're really exploring benefits with each organization. Just while you're typing that, I'll tell you a little story. Which, when we were talking about membership benefits with organization that I find really interesting, and I'm only going to talk about them because they're not on the webinar today, and I'm not sure they're going to watch it either. But one that pops up for me quite often is the National Trust. I've spoken about this before, and some people on this today might have heard me talking about the National Trust, who list their benefits of membership as free car parking. Predominantly, that's front and center. Free car parking is the benefit of membership, and they're not wrong. You know, to go to visit a National Trust site, you don't want to pay for parking every time. If you want to get out and about, you can certainly benefit from free car parking. There could be potentially a tangible return. Jenna, do you want to is there anybody typed into chat?
Yeah, we've had a couple of comments come in so far. So we've got quality certification at company level as one of the benefits.
Absolutely.
Chris says his client is about improving standards and sharing best practice.
Mm-hmm.
And for Anne, I believe, who's at LLG, it's for members accessing a community of colleagues, which is really important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to talk a bit about community engagement moving forward. just going back to my national trust example. For me, the benefit of membership with the National Trust is an investment in our national heritage. During COVID, when nobody could visit National Trust sites, the National Trust suffered a massive dip in membership. And the reason why? Because the benefit of membership was car parking. During COVID, nobody needed to park a car. What they were really missing out on is that community feel, the community of protecting our national heritage, our national, that investment in our national heritage, which was really what the National Trust is about, the massive volunteer networks that sit behind it. Now imagine there was a powerhouse of social engagement and community engagement around the protection of our national heritage, and that's what the key benefit of membership was. Because it's really interesting that when I'm workshopping with membership organizations, that more often than not one of them say anything about social engagement. And if you go back to what the very definition of a membership organization is about, it's about collaboration and interaction. And we can argue that we provide that via physical events, but really I don't think that's really keeping up with modern times. I sound really old as I say that, but the world has evolved, in platforms like LinkedIn are showing us, and they're actually taking traffic away from us. There could be better ways of doing this with social engagement. It's my belief that we can leverage that hook model to create a much more engaging member experience and generate more investment in our platforms. Just take a look at your LinkedIn profile. If you open up your actual profile and just scan down the page, me personally, I'm invested in LinkedIn because it's got my entire career history. It's got my qualifications. It's got my skills listed there. Unlike social networks like Instagram or Facebook, where my investment is in the content I post, the primary investment that I have in LinkedIn, and I would probably say you, is my professional history and my professional network. Why are your members going to LinkedIn and paying them to display your qualifications? It makes absolutely no sense. We've got members and their professional connections endorsing each other for skills that you've either provided or validated for them, and none of it is happening on your own networks. They've got an investment elsewhere with your data because the platforms that we're providing are simply not engaging enough. Why can't we use the hook model to create a more compelling member experience and create a platform that users actually feel invested in? It's the holy grail, retention. We talk about retention so much in this sector, but we don't often address directly how we can improve and increase retention. But it's there, it's staring us in our face, a really clear, demonstrable model of how to achieve that. The traditional approach to membership engagement has been incredibly transactional. Most of the portals that we develop here at Wattle facilitate renewals, event booking, training, and educational transactions. We've definitely seen a recent welcome shift towards community platforms, and one was mentioned as a benefit there, with multiple clients engaged in projects to roll out communities and online communities. And online communities do have habit forming elements to them, but I believe that we can do better. We start thinking about how we can facilitate users feeling invested in our platform. So the slide here really is sort of showing what traditionally we would be addressing as a problem when we're deploying technology in portal-based solutions. By extending the transactional model and applying some of the lessons that we've learned so far today, we can create a digital platform where members are generating content and creating that missing component of investment in our offering. If we extend any one of the common transactional elements and include the ability to socially share, network, and engage with peers on our platforms, not someone else's, we've suddenly got the recipe for a habit forming platform. We need to create an environment that stimulates the desires that people have for social acceptance, for engagement with peers, and to meet that the basic foundational aspects of membership based organizations. We should be extending our offering to ensure that we're connecting people, increasing collaboration and interaction between members and with our organizations. We work with a lot of membership associations, both individual and organizational based membership associations. I previously mentioned about the desire to benchmark engagement and our shift towards community platforms, but nobody's really closing the gap between platforms like LinkedIn and our associations. I still can't understand why we have members posting our qualifications and achievements onto a platform where they can be endorsed by complete strangers with no vetting. Why are our members looking to build professional connections when we've got the most qualified database of professional connections out there? Wattle are aiming to close the gap and generate tools within the MemEx platform to create truly habit-forming member experiences. We want to be able to enable organizations to not just measure, but to actually create engagement. So I'm just going to show you some of the work that's in progress. For those that don't know, on the presentation today, MemEx is Wattle's product, which sits across both a digital offering and a in-house customer relationship management platform. It's predominantly built around Microsoft-based technologies. So we have a Power Platform app that sits within Dynamics 365 and a web-based offering which includes a portal system. The key component of that solution is that those two things seamlessly integrate together. So it provides that point of member interaction externally, so the portals that members are engaging on, and hooks that back up to the in-house membership management systems, creating a 360-degree view of member data within our organizations. Now, the people that are on this today that are using MemEx, again, probably won't recognize what they're looking at here today. There'll be some differences in some of the things that I'm showing. Aesthetically, we will alter portals on a per client basis to meet their creative and branding, but there's also some functionality in here that Wattle's currently investing in from a research and development perspective in order to be able to meet some of the needs of the topics that I've been talking about today. So traditionally, we create portals that, as I mentioned, are transactional in nature. When I say transactional, it can be literally transactional. The single most common feature sat within a portal, payments. Any of our clients that are on today will probably recognize this table, a list of invoices that are drawn from the CRM system where somebody can pay for their membership and go through the renewal process. In fact, a large chunk of discovery is often spent on membership sign up and membership renewal based processes, and rightly so. They're complex. They need to integrate with external systems, payment gateway systems. They need to integrate with internal business processes and back into the in-house CRM systems. But ultimately, the members' experience is that they get a table with a list that says, give me money now, and they are asked to make a payment through the portal. It might be that we extend some of that functionality in a portal and create event management functionality and create the facility to be able to book onto events. And we're certainly creating more engagement at this point. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. You know, it's a lot of functionality integrating the portal-based booking experiences for events back into the in-house CRM system. And we're certainly creating things like preference management and profile management within our portal-based systems as well, because we want people to be able to manage their own data. Just a few years ago, we were all talking about efficiency savings of management of information internally and self-service, creating gains in productivity and efficiency within organizations. So when I'm talking about transactional experiences, that's what I'm talking about, where we're asking a user to buy something from us or do something for us. It doesn't meet some of those needs of the hook model that we were talking about in the presentation earlier. Why can't we do a bit better than that? why can't we learn lessons from other platforms which are currently taking some of our data, in my opinion, away from us? Again, I've stressed it a couple of times now, but it makes no sense to me that somebody would go into a training course with a membership organization, go to LinkedIn, state that they have that qualification, and people who have never met them in their lives or even known that they have that qualification endorse that skill set and qualification on LinkedIn. Yet they do it and they pay for it. More often than not, they pay for it when they're still not paying your organizations for membership. Why is that? And the answer is that missing piece of the puzzle, the investment that people have in that platform. Now, I'm not saying that you're trying to compete with LinkedIn. It's quite the opposite, really, because the source of this should be from your organizations. Am I still on? I heard a beep. I am.
You're still online.
Yeah, fantastic. I heard that dreaded doo-doop as though the internet connection was dead or something. Yeah, so the creating that investment. So why can't we extend our portal-based systems to allow members to have a much more socially engaging experience with our organizations? Why can't they build up a professional network, particularly if it's individual membership as opposed to organizational level membership? But what's stopping organizations that are organizational level membership creating the same facilities? Because it's individuals within those organizations interacting. Why can't an individual within an organization see their own network of other individuals directly and even create relationships to other individuals within other organizations? And when we're talking about individual membership, again, allowing people to network, to create those connections, they're already doing it. They're doing it on LinkedIn. They're creating those social connections, yet you have the most qualified database of professionals within your sectors, sat within your own systems. It's not a great big leap for us to start creating the tools for people to build up their professional networks within a portal-based platform. Why can't we allow people to socially share content? Why can't we ask them to tell us what they're doing or celebrate their achievements? If they've attended an event, why can't they say they've attended an event within their professional network, within their portal-based system? Why can't you celebrate other people's achievements? If somebody's passed an exam or a qualification, let's give it a thumbs up and a like and a comment directly within our own portal-based systems. Why can't we create the tools within our portals to enable social communication, messaging, allow people to communicate with other members via simple communication tools that exist within those portals? Once we start applying some of the lessons that we learned today from the HUT model, we start to create digital platforms that members engage with, where they're creating their own content and generating their own investment within the platform. They will feel compelled to use the platform because they have much more an investment in it than the transactional relationship they have through booking something or buying something ultimately. So that's some of the work that we're doing as an organization to address some of these topics. So this is work that's in process at the moment. We've got a dedicated product development team internally, which is spending time working on some of these concepts and working at how we can best put them in front of our clients that are using those platforms. But what if you're an organization that isn't using MemEx or don't have access to those facilities? You do have the ability to be able to still take some of these lessons that you've learned that we've been talking about today. You do have the ability to be able to implement some of these things. So we can take a look at some of the tools that already exist, like closed Facebook groups, WhatsApp for business, and even LinkedIn pages, company pages. We can celebrate member achievements on social channels and let other members engage, that they form connections with other members. We also spoke about community engagement platforms, and Discourse is a really low-cost way of bringing community collaboration into your organization. We've got a client on the call today, which is using that platform for that very reason. It's a forum-based approach to member interaction. Now, these tools in isolation aren't the complete answer, and obviously some of the challenges with using some of these tools is that the data sits outside of your network, but they are a quick way to be able to start implementing some of these things. A closed Facebook group, for example, is much more owned than a unmoderated LinkedIn social connection that somebody has. You can create invite-only groups on Facebook for members, for example, to start creating close communities with social interaction and engagement. There would be a degree of user organization-led moderation and input needed into that type of approach, but the tools are out there to facilitate that type of collaboration and provide that type of community and social engagement for members. So I want to thank you for spending the time listening to me today. I hope that some of the topics raised were thought-provoking, and I'd certainly welcome any questions that anybody might have, or any observations, or any thoughts. I'm going to kill the PowerPoint because that's the longest death by PowerPoint that I think I have ever done. So if anybody has anything that they want to ask or contribute, now is the time. Yeah, so Chris, I agree with your point. It does make sense to bring social engagement into the platform. Members are doing it anyway, so why not bring it closer and integrated? I don't disagree. The argument against it, that you could make against it, is that it's impossible to compete with a social network, and I wouldn't disagree. You're not going to compete with Facebook or Instagram or whatever it may be. The bit that doesn't make sense to me is when you look at a LinkedIn profile and you scroll down, you're looking at the qualifications and the skills in the endorsement section of a LinkedIn profile, which is where a lot of people have that investment. Is their entire career history is sat there with people giving them recommendations and endorsements. It's completely outside of the place where they've actually often obtained those qualifications. Many membership organizations are providing routes to certification and accreditation, yet we're going external to share those achievements. And I think that people would be more inclined to share those achievements with other people that are validated as professional connections in a much more legitimate way. So I don't think you are directly competing. And what's more, you can obviously start looking at ways of creating integration between existing social platforms. It's certainly something that we're exploring from a research and development perspective, is how we can take some of the work I was showing you with the prototype I was showing you for the latest iteration of MemEx, and how we might be able to integrate some of that into platforms that people already have an investment in, riding the coattails of platforms that have already got this right effectively. So if nobody's got any more questions, then that brings us to the end of our session. So the recording is going to be placed. The recording is going to be placed on our website and shared on LinkedIn, so you can access it again if you like. And if you wanted to discuss any of the topics that I've spoken about today with me directly, or anyone at Wattle directly, Jenna is also quite friendly. She'll happily chat to you. But please do feel free to reach out, and I'm more than happy to continue the conversation, even if it's just talking about different ideas and concepts around some of the things that we've covered today. So thank you ever so much, everybody, for taking the time out in this tremendous heat, and I hope that all of you are going to be enjoying a glass of some beverage of some description towards the end of the day in the searing sunshine, because tomorrow the rain starts. So thank you very much, everybody.
I've just shared my details into the chat. In case anyone wants to drop me an email, give me a call. And since we've been talking so much about LinkedIn, there's a link to my profile, so please do connect with me on there, and I'll happily endorse.
There we go, straight to LinkedIn we all go. Good stuff. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Joining.